You're listening to Now I've Heard Everything, conversations with the icons of our time.
My mother, she was like, you are absolutely not going to be a model. Are you daft? You're so going to school. And what about your scholarship? So I wasn't going to throw that away for empty promises.
Sudanese refugee turned supermodel Alek Wek. Today on Now I've Heard Everything, I'm Bill Thompson. Back in 1995 in London, a teenager one day was at an outdoor market, got a tap on the shoulder from a stranger. That stranger turned out to be a modeling scout, and in very short order, Alek Wek was signed as a professional model. And before long, she was appearing on the covers of international magazines. In 1997, she was MTV's Model of the Year. But what makes her story so extraordinary, so incredible, is that at that point she'd only been living in London for 4 years after her family fled their homeland, civil war-torn Sudan. Alek told her story in a 2007 autobiography called simply Alek. I met her when she was on her book tour. So here now from 2007, Alek Wek.
My name is Alek, A-L-E-K, and my father's name is Wek.
What inspired you to write this book?
I would say what really triggered this book for me to really actually feel 100% to put these memoirs into words was a moment when I took a trip back to where I was born and raised in Southern Sudan 3 years ago. And I had the opportunity basically at a time where the peace agreement was really long due for, just because of the civil war, how much of a toll is taken on the Sudanese people in general. Once that has taken place, that was really a start, because nothing really could have been done or even to try and improve unless there was at least somewhat of a peace agreement. So that was the start. And once I had that opportunity, I was like, definitely, because at that time I was already out in exile, obviously seek refuge in England, and I couldn't do it myself, because no matter how successful you are, there's always personal things that always daunt you. And for me, there were so many elements of my life that I really needed closure in, especially going through the civil war as a child.
Well, it strikes me whenever you sit down to write a memoir, an autobiography, you have to remember things that you had successfully been able to put out of your memory. You have to dredge those things back up again. Did you dread that or look forward to it?
Well, I didn't really look forward to it, but without revisiting those memories, those times, there wouldn't be a book here. There wouldn't be Alek, from Sudanese refugee to international supermodel, It would have been something else. And for me, that wasn't the case. It was really that I do it all and revisit those moments and come to terms with it and move forward, or I just don't. And it would have been a shame not to do so. So I had to. And it was really emotional and difficult, but that was the only way out that I could have really written these memoirs. If not, there wouldn't be real memoirs. So, and I had a writer. I had to interview with definitely several writers, because, this, even though the writer hasn't lived in Sudan, but they had to somewhat put themselves in that place. They had to somewhat, do research and also the history of and understanding what really actually happened in Sudan. I mean, prior to not just this war, but the first war, the people, the culture. I mean, that was very important, because you can't just make a conclusion without understanding all of those elements. And it was very hard. But for me, I felt like at that point in my life, I really needed to write this, not just for me, but also, in my small voice, in terms of, on the side of the Sudanese people. I felt like, I've been fortunate enough to have gotten out, and not so many have, including my family from my mother's side, from my father's side. And that's the one thing that surprised me, going back 3 years ago, seeing how emotional my mother was, and she was always the strength. I have never seen her weak or really emotional. And for me, I realized, wow, she really put on a face to really give us the best she could at such times when there wasn't hope. Looking back now, I mean, we were very poor, but we didn't feel so, because they filled us with love, with hope, with education, with morals, values, always over and over reminding us of where we came from, what our tradition were. Even though we lived in town, still this is who you are. And as a young person, you don't understand the depth of what your parents sacrificed beyond, your eyes before you could see. And just going back, I really felt that, here is a person that gave everything because she wanted us to lead in the future and become, good people, not one of the people that contributed anything atrocious, not people that took everything for granted. And
well, when you talk about taking things for granted, how many people in the United States, in Great Britain, other first world countries take for granted things that you didn't even get to experience until you moved to London?
I mean, that was a totally different culture shock. Not shock, but, in a way it was. There was
probably like a different planet.
Yeah, everything was just completely different. There was nothing that I could compare, even after tasting food. It was just completely different. But you can't work yourself out over that. If you think in terms of safety, in terms of, the opportunity to just be able to not look behind your back, and you could actually create a future for yourself. That was really something that was very important for me, and was important for my father before he passed. And I really think that we, in the Western world, including me being a part of the community now, it's so easy to not care because you could get so wrapped up on things that are just seem so fantastic and so brilliant, but under the surface, is it really, especially when we really sit back and think, we are very fortunate and we can do something. We have a very strong voice, and we could shed light where people and human beings that don't even have that base to even think of any other, but just their life is online. So for me, that really struck a chord with me from a very early age. But also, I feel as people, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go through what I went through during the Civil War. You can still feel something, especially when you understand the position you're at. I think that we all as humans have compassion, but what do we take as an option and as what's bigger than us? That's the thing. And it's okay not to know. I mean, even though I'm from Sudan, I'm constantly wanting to know what's going on currently from the humanitarian groups and educating myself. And I think that's where it starts, where, you want to be able to educate yourself, to learn, and you could truly find people that can do so.
There is a part of your story that is the fantasy of many people around the world. This fantasy that you'll be in a crowd in a big city one day and someone will just come up and tap you on the shoulder and say, "How would you like to be a superstar?" I mean, do you know how many people, men and women, boys and girls around the world, dream that that's going to happen to them someday?
Absolutely, but the reality is, just because you've been spotted to be a model doesn't mean you're going to be a supermodel. And that's why it's really interesting, and I really felt like I should write this book, because it's not about fashion, but it's about what it really takes to go through life and what really is the most important. Not just getting a picture taken of, not just getting spotted one Sunday afternoon and it's going to solve everything. That's not how it plays out. And I thought it was very important to have that in there. I mean, Alek didn't live a glamorous life up until when I was tapped in the shoulder, until I was even a model at that point. I didn't live a glamorous life. And I think it's important to be able to express that, especially for the youngsters that think, oh my God, modeling is something so fantastic. Well, in actual reality, it isn't. It's misleading at times, and I think it's important to really to really voice it out, especially when I understand it, and I had to educate myself. I thought it was very important, and like I said, it wasn't just because I was discovered, and all of a sudden I was on the covers of magazine, and that was it. There was a lot that went on. And again, without my family, my mother, I mean, she was like, you are absolutely not going to be a model. Are you daft? You're so going to school. And what about your scholarship? And I thought about that. There's no way I could have worked all the overtimes to add up to the amount to go to school. So I wasn't going to throw that away for empty promises. I've always gone with something I have knowledge of. If I don't, I leave it alone. Because if not, you're just going to be left with regrets. And I was like, I've come too long in life to just dive myself into something I've no knowledge of.
Well, you also knew early on that you can't be a model your whole life because there aren't too many 65-year-old models. There are some, but your modeling career is a few intense years, and then so now you have a line of handbags.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, just the idea alone, thinking I'm going to be like 40 years old, 50 or 60, bless me. Walking up and down with 16-year-olds, I mean, they are very young nowadays, modeling. That's just absurd. But I'm very grateful for an industry where there were some people, like everywhere else, that have negative, comments. And it's like, everybody has their own opinion, but don't stress it on me because I don't share that opinion. So I tend to just go towards something that's more productive and I can grow, because negativity, there's no growth in it. It's just people spending time, just talking. And like my mother said, talking and no doing. It's no good. So, I'm just grateful that they let me evolve as a young girl into a woman and start my handbag business in the middle of it all when it was really busy. I had to go from show to country to the other country, even though it's stressful. It was such a small amount of time where you have to establish your career. And for me to have been in it for that long, I mean, it was really a blessing, because not even so many of my colleagues have been able to transit from, modeling in a hectic pace to modeling in moderation, because I can't, run a business and then all of a sudden just say, oh, I have to go on a runway. I mean, that's just not happening.
So, all right, let's say that you're in an airport and you see Elle magazine, you're on the cover. Then you see this woman over here with a Wek 1933 bag. Which gives you the greater thrill?
The first time I saw somebody with Wek 1933 bags, I'm like bummed because it gave me goosebumps. It was a different feeling. It's something that business, it's something that you have to take very serious. It's not something, unless you just want to start something, leave it, start something else and leave it. But for me, having a business is something you take very serious. You're responsible for other people. You have to work with a team. It's not like modeling where you just show up and there are 10 people or 20, depending on the team, that are all focused on you. And you really do feel like everything kind of, evolves around you. But at the end of the day, you have to do your job. There is no excuse, no matter if you're small model, supermodel, whatnot. There is no excuses. So in that manner, it's completely different. And you have to follow through. There are deadlines. There's no excuses for it. And it really does give me a different outlook of me coming in and modeling, not modeling like when I was, 19 or 21 or so forth, but I really can appreciate that, there are really intelligent designers that take their job very serious and enjoy it and appreciate it for what it is. And, they've made other companies that they've joined forces with really make tremendous amount of funds. And it's not just like, oh, it's fashion show for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, there are people, families that have worked very hard to put together a collection. And over the period of like 6 months or so of research, of, paperwork, of, sitting down, sewing, all the nitty gritty. I mean, these are things that, even the young girls, that's why that are coming in the business, and they ask me, it's like, even silly questions, but they're not silly for me because I had to go and research all those things. I didn't know that you could make samples and you have to put together, your first sketches. And again, education is important. Without me going to finishing my, at least, I feel like every young person should finish their secondary school, high school. I mean, there's no way, no matter how successful you happen to be lucky to be in whatever industry, whether it's, you win the lottery or you become a model or you
join the NBA.
Join the NBA or, you want to be a wrestler, whatnot. You need that mind. You need that mind in life. You need that knowledge. Without that, you can't even appreciate what you have. You can't even interact with people and understand them and for them to understand you. And that's the one thing I would say I never understood when I was young, but I understood you had to get on with it. And I'm so grateful for that. And not if I haven't had gone to college and studied art and history and design, I mean, there's no way I would have had WEC 1933. So, again, things do come full circle, so it is important to get that education out the way and you can really have full understanding what direction you're going to as a human being and what is the most important things and what is to just, not even waste time on. And I find that I'm very grateful for that and appreciative. And, it's very important. And yes, in 1933 is when my father was born, and he passed away when I was 12. But I remember the first day when my mother ironed my clothes and dressed me and said, now you're going to your first day at school. My father walking with me and that during that walk telling me how school was going to change my life. I'm not going to be anymore just, around my mother, her teaching me every day's task. And it was a special moment, even though I was like 6, 7 years old. I mean, early memories are very important. So I said when he was born, because business, you need something to always keep you going, not to give up, because as you come through ups and downs, and you know what, without him, I wouldn't be the woman I am sitting here today. So I think it's important to definitely be grateful for those who has given you opportunities and inspired you.
Alek Wek is 47 now. She lives in New York. Now you can get your copy of Alek by Alek Wek by tapping the link in our show notes or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. HeardEverything.com is where you can also find my 2005 interview with supermodel Iman.
Nowadays, young girls are bombarded with extreme makeovers, cosmetic surgery at a very young age. And in a way, I wanted them to try to find the natural beauty and the natural God-given features.
And my 1998 conversation with Tyra Banks.
Everybody wants what they don't have. I want what I don't have. I wish I had bigger calves, and I wish I didn't have cellulite. I look at some models and I'm like, oh my God, her butt is so smooth. Why do I have to have dimples in mine?
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, as the Olympics are about to get underway, we'll revisit my 1998 interview with Olympic gold medalist from 1984, well-known Olympic trainer, Al Joyner.
Even now, when I get kids to run, I try to make it a fun routine. And if you tell the kids it's a fun routine, not like the way you say you got to go out and do this, they forget about all the hard work that goes into it and have fun.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.